Hi there, welcome to my presentation. My name is Johanna Liebenberg. Today I will be presenting the application I have built for my final year project, that is, Do Something, an event creation and organization app for the laid-back planner. Before we kick off, let me give you a brief overview of what this presentation will consist of. Firstly, I'll take you through a couple of slides introducing you to the motivation of the app's development. This will set the stage nicely for when I conduct a walkthrough of the app itself. Once I have run through all application's features, I will give you a concise summary of the application's system architecture. You'll get to see a little breakdown of the code as well, and finally, I'll wrap up to conclude the main points discussed here today. On to the introduction. Cambridge Dictionary defines information overload as a situation in which you receive too much information at one time and cannot think about it in a clear way. The problem of information overload will also only worsen as more people are incorporated into the online community and produce even more data. This data is expected to make a staggering increase over time, estimated to leap from 33 zettabytes in 2018 to 175 zettabytes by 2025. Practical solutions are required if this problem is to be solved. Over the course of the past decade, recommender systems have provided a solution to this problem, so much so that they have become expected. We expect to be provided with the YouTube videos, Instagram pictures, and Amazon products we need and love. But why does this expectation stop here? Why do we not expect similar recommendations when it comes to other areas of our lives? There is so much in this world to explore and things to do, enough for me to see the need for a recommendation system to ease in this decision-making process. When it comes to implementing a decision that is to be made by a group, decisions are reliant on the nature of the interactions among the members themselves. An important consideration is fairness, where the preferences of the group members are considered as far as possible. Many apps exist that service the needs of the individual. For example, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Netflix, Pinterest, etc. But few to none do the same for that of the group. The purpose of my app is to address this problem. Specifically, the app will provide users with personalized recommendations that aid in event creation and organizational decision-making. The app will prioritize such recommendations to the group over the individual. Practically, I'll be focusing on a domain that I have found personally challenging to coordinate with. That is, movie recommendation for friends and family. Further development of the app will include additional assistance. However, for the purposes of demonstration, I feel that movie recommendation portrays the app's potential adequately. Please note that the core goal of the app aims to simplify event creation and organization. But what do I mean when I use the word event? By event, I mean any social gathering orientated around a group activity. Examples could include a morning run, a meal with friends and family, or even a movie night. To reiterate, the aim of my app is to simplify the creation of such events. Recommendations to groups of the events could include the optimal route for the morning run based on the travel distance for each user. It could include a specific restaurant or recipe tailored to everyone's tastes, or a movie for the evening. The scale of implementation is truly limitless, which is why I've loved working on this project so much. Now that you've got a good background for the motivation of the app, I'll be taking you through a walkthrough of the app itself. To do this, I'll be sharing my screen from my iPhone using an application called Expogo. The app itself is not published to the App Store, but all the features are visible just as it would be if it was published. So as I said, I'm going to be sharing my screen from my phone to demonstrate the app. To do this, I'm going to be utilizing Expogo. So here we can see my app is running locally on my MacBook. I'll be loading it now. You can see that we have a splash screen, which nicely transitions into the welcome page of the application. You can see at the bottom we have the login button and the register button. Pretty self-explanatory. The register button allows the user to be tracked to the register page, where the user can register an account for the app. Now, for demonstration purposes, I've created a few users in order to exhibit the functionality of the app. So I'm just going to log into one of them now. To do this, you just need an email and a password. You can see that the email and password is validated. And once we log in, it takes us to the main screen of the app. This is the event screen. All public events are hosted on this screen. You can see that each event is displayed as a card. Now these cards are touchable, which means that if I click on the movie night, it'll pop up with extra details. Now at the moment, you can see that there's no participants in this event. So if any member wanted to join this event, all they have to do is just press in the Count Me In button. This would add the user to the event. I'll get to further features later, but this is the basic functionality for signing in and out of an event. Then in the middle, at the lower hand navigation panel, we have an icon with a plus sign on it. This takes us to the screen which is responsible for creating an event. You can see there are many fields for the user to input, such as the title, the time, the category, the description field, and at the very top we have an image input field. Now, I'm going to be demonstrating a quick creation of an event. So let's just say morning run. And let's set this to 5 o'clock, so quite early in the morning. Then, an optional description. Let's say morning run in Exeter Central. Then we can pick the category. Now I'll get to the distinction between the movie category and the custom category and restaurant category later. But basically, currently the app is set up so that the movie category of events only have the recommendation feature for the group. So I'll just pick custom because this isn't a movie event. You can see that there's a nice animation upon creation of the event. If we go back to the main event screen, you can see that the event hasn't been added yet. Now this is because we do need to refresh the events page. Once we do that, you can see that the morning run is shown at the bottom. If we click on that, we can see that there are no participants. I'll just sign up for that one since I've created it. And yeah, I would just like to also show the contact organizer functionality. Now, as I've created this event, I could message myself, but obviously this is intended for other participants other than the organizer. But I'll just send test. You can see once we do that, we have a nice notification at the top. And now I would like to show you the final page, or the final main page for my app, which is the account page. You can see that it's at the right hand side of my lower navigation panel. We have various functionalities for the user's account, such as displaying the user's events. You can see that I've just created the morning run, and there it is. I've also created a movie night in this account. We have the messages. Yeah, we can see the messages, the one that I just sent now to myself, test. And we have the preferences page. Now this page is pretty crucial for my application because it establishes the user's liking for various movies. Now this set of liking is then input into the recommendation system. In order to like a movie, a user can simply press on one of the lower recommended movies. These movies are determined by the user input. Now at the moment, the user doesn't have any input for the recommender system, so these are just generic movies that are recommended. But if I just search Superman, for instance, and add that to the set of like movies. Now I do have to say that some of the movie posters do not show. Now this is a problem with my application. It's mainly a problem with the database because the database contains a URL link to the poster, and not all of these posters display because the URL link isn't hosting the image anymore. But now you can see I've searched another movie, The Matrix, and it shows. So it's not a consistent problem with all movies, but it does pop up quite frequently, I would say, and it is something that I need to fix. But generally, it's okay. So you can see I can add the movie to my set of like movies by searching at the top, but I can also tap on the movie at the bottom. I've just tapped on Superman 4, I've added it. You can see that I can scroll, adding Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor, and you can see that I've added quite a few superhero movies, and you can immediately tell that the recommender system is working as intended because of the fact that we see further superhero movies. Now, in order to delete some movies, all we have to do is slide the movie to the left and then press delete. This will remove the movie from the set of like movies. If we go back to the other functionality of the account screen, if we delete the morning run, similar type feature, just slide to the left, delete it. Same thing with the messages screen. Now I'll just refresh this because we deleted the morning run event. If we go in here, and now I join this movie night, join it. Now we can see that we're getting our recommendations for this event at the bottom. Now this is based on the current participant of the event, which is Yochanan. As I said, I've established a superhero based sort of liking for movies, and we can see that reflected in the recommendation for the group. Now I'll just quickly log out and log into another user that I've created. Now this is another user, and the reason why I want to do this is because I want to create another set of liked movies. So I'll just be picking child-friendly movies. This is a good way to distinguish between the superhero movies, which is tailored for Yochanan, and maybe the children movies tailored for Ellie.
If I go into the movie night, if we go to the bottom, we can see that there are the superhero movies recommended. If I join, then now we can see that we have the superhero movies, but we also have the children movies. For example, Monsters Incorporated, Inside Out, or Pixar related. So that's quite nice. I don't think there's anything else left to show you other than maybe account creation, which I'll do now. Create a new account. Let's call this account tester. All the fields are validated. Also, there we go. So the user is created. So now all we have to do is log in. Lovely. As you can see, we are in the newly created tester account, with no events created, obviously.
Next, I'll be talking about the system architecture. As with any application design these days, the overall layout can be broken down into the two well-known components, that is the front end and the back end. For the purposes of explanation, I'll be further decomposing the back end into three subdivisions, that is the main functionality, the database, and most importantly, the recommendation system. In other words, these three elements, together with the front end, form the higher level abstraction of the application's architecture. I'll start with the front end. For the front end, I've used React Native and Expo. I really enjoyed using these technologies, mostly because during development of various components, whenever I wanted to implement it, I could immediately test it using Expogo, just as I have done with the walkthrough. This was a really good experience as it made development of these components really easy, and I could get feedback immediately from the experience, just as a user would. So here we can see the file structure for my front end. The entry point for the front end is the app.js file. Here we can see that the user object is initialized, and dependent on this user object, the navigation container then renders the app navigator or the auth navigator. The app navigator is responsible for navigation within the application's main interface, whereas the auth navigator is responsible for navigation between the welcome screen, the register screen, and the login screen. Speaking about screens, here we can see all of the screens defined within my application. We've got the account screen, login screen, register screen, various other screens you might recognize. Within this file, navigation, all of my app's navigation is defined within this file. This file is also very important. It defines all of the components used within my app's interface. You might recognize a card component, which is displayed in the event screen, forming a representation for the event. We can see various buttons, list inputs. Here's all the form fields within the event creation screen. The auth file contains a lot of the logic for caching various data, such as the user's auth token, so that he doesn't need to log in if he closes the application again. The assets folder contains all of the assets, such as the background, the logo, and also the animations, which is used to signify that an event has been uploaded. Within this file, the API file, this handles all of the networking between the front end and the back end. You can see that we've got an API associated with events, with a group, with the Flask API, otherwise known as the recommender system, messages, movies, users. All of my networking is handled here. that pretty much summarizes all of the code in my front end. On to the back end. For the back end, I've used a Node server with Express to handle the networking. I really enjoyed this as Express allows you to route the requests to functions, making it really easy and understandable to handle requests. Next, I would like to go over the file structure for my backend. I'll do this quickly. So the entry point is the index file. This describes all of the routes which the requests are made to. You can see that the port is established here, and all of the routes are then called back to the associated functions within this file. Here we can see that, for instance, the login of the user is established in the auth file, or the auth route. We can see that it handles a post request, and then a lot of the functionality here is outsourced to the store file. All of the logic here then handles the communication with the database. In my case, it's MongoDB. For instance, here we can see that users are retrieved, users are added. We can see that the user object is created. All of the logic then is encapsulated within this file. A lot of the middleware for the Express tools are encapsulated here, such as authentication via the auth token. We also have a delay, and then also the image resizing for the thumbnail and the full image when a user uploads pictures to the database. When it came to the recommender system of the backend, I've used Python. Python is a great language for machine learning, which is what the recommender system is. I used Flask to expose the API of the recommender system for use of the main functionality, which I've just covered. So here I'll be going over a little bit of the code for the recommender system. Initially, all of the plots had to be processed. This involved getting it ready for vectorization. Vectorization was applied here using the TF-IDF vectorizer. Then the cosine similarity between the vectors are found, and once all of this was done, the recommendations were found by calling this function. The top 15 movies were returned to the user based on the user's input. Now, all of this was communicated between the recommender system and the main functionality of the backend through a Flask API. When it came to the backend, I used MongoDB. I really liked using MongoDB because it is an unstructured database, and it really makes my future development of the app easier because any new fields can be simply added without needing to change the structure of the database. And there we have it. I want to thank you for listening to my presentation. You've seen today the motivation for the app. You've also gotten to see the walkthrough of the application itself, all of the functionality. You've also got to see a little bit of the problems with the posters not rendering, but that's okay. And finally, as you've just seen, I've got to break down some of the code and the system architecture for you. Thanks again for listening. I hope you have a good day.